Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into one of the wildest, most baffling mysteries in all of American history.
Seriously, think about it. How do you even begin to look for someone who literally just disappeared into thin air? This is the puzzle at the heart of the D.B. Cooper case, which, get this, is still the only unsolved skyjacking in commercial aviation history. The only one.
Okay, so to really get a grip on this story, we're going to do things a little differently. We're not starting at the beginning. Nope. We're jumping right to the most dramatic part, the moment he became a ghost.
Just try to put yourself in the cockpit for a second. It's 8:13 at night, you're flying over a pitch-black forest, and bam! The tail of your plane suddenly jumps up. You know exactly what just happened. He's gone. And with that one crazy leap into the freezing night, a 50-year mystery was born.
So you've got to be asking, how in the world did this guy end up on the back of a Boeing 727 ready to jump? Well, for that, we need to rewind the tape back to Thanksgiving Eve, 1971.
You know, this whole thing started as just a super short, routine flight from Portland to Seattle. But man, did it spiral out of control fast. Or maybe it was perfectly in control. As you can see from this timeline, this wasn't chaos. This was a carefully executed plan, from the moment he passed that note to the moment he jumped.
And the craziest part, it didn't start with some big dramatic scene. It was quiet. He just handed a flight attendant a note. She actually thought it was some lonely guy trying to give her his number and kind of brush it off. But then he leaned in and said, "Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb." And when he opened his briefcase, yep, there it was. Looked just like dynamite. Suddenly, this was very, very real.
Okay, look at these demands. This tells you everything you need to know about the kind of guy we're dealing with here. He didn't just ask for money. He asked for 4 parachutes. Now, why 4? It was genius, really. It made it seem like he might take a hostage with him, so the FBI couldn't just give him a dud parachute. And the flight plan? So specific. Low altitude, gear down, unpressurized. This guy knew planes. He was absolutely not some random amateur.
And the picture the crew painted of him is just bizarre. Here's a guy hijacking a plane, and he's totally calm. Polite, even. He orders a bourbon and 7-Up, chain smokes some cigarettes, and he even insisted on paying for his drink. I mean, who does that? He wasn't some wild-eyed criminal. He was cool, collected, almost like a phantom, which just makes the fact that he disappeared even weirder.
So poof, he's gone. Vanished into the night. Now the big question becomes, where did he land? What followed was one of the biggest and honestly most frustrating manhunts America had ever seen.
By the next spring, things got serious. The U.S. Army got involved. We're talking more than 200 soldiers combing the forests for 18 straight days, an absolutely massive search. And the result? Zilch. Nada. Not a single trace of him.
And here's where we run into a major, major problem for the FBI. They pretty quickly figured out that their first guess for where he landed was probably wrong. Once they crunched the numbers again with better data, they realized the real drop zone was likely further east. So just imagine that whole massive 18-day search with 200 soldiers. It might have been in the complete wrong spot.
All right, so the ground search was a total bust. But that doesn't mean they had nothing. They did have a few clues, a few breadcrumbs left behind. The only problem? They were just as confusing as everything else.
So back in the plane, they found what he left behind. A black clip-on tie, a tie clip, a bunch of cigarette butts. But the real head-scratcher was the parachutes. See, he was given 4, and he jumped with 2. But one of the 2 he left behind was a perfectly good main parachute. And one of the ones he took? Well, it turns out it was just a training dummy. It was sewn shut. Useless. So the big question is, did he know he was jumping with a bad chute? Or did he just make the biggest mistake of his life?
And then, silence. For almost a decade, nothing. The trail went completely cold. Then, fast forward to 1980. An 8-year-old kid is on a camping trip with his family, digging a fire pit on a sandy riverbank, and his hands hit something. It's 3 rotting bundles of $20 bills, a little over $5,000 in total.
The FBI gets the call, they check the serial numbers, and it's a match. It was Cooper's ransom money. So that proved one thing for sure. The money made it to the ground. But finding it buried in the sand 9 years later, miles from the suspected drop zone, man, that didn't answer questions. It just created a brand new, massive puzzle.
So investigators were totally stumped.
how did the money get here? One theory was that a dredging boat sucked it up from the river bottom and spit it out onto the beach. But the spot where the kid found it was way too far from where the dredge was working. Okay, so maybe it just washed ashore naturally? That seems plausible, right? Except geologists looked at the sand layers and said the money probably got buried there years after 1971. The timeline just didn't add up.
Now, let's jump forward decades. Remember that cheap black clip-on tie he left on the plane? Well, citizen scientists got a hold of it, put it under a powerful electron microscope, and found something incredible. Hundreds of tiny metal particles, specifically particles of pure titanium and other rare earth elements. Now, back in the 70s, you couldn't find this stuff just anywhere. You'd find it in really specific, high-tech places, like, say, an airplane manufacturing plant, maybe even Boeing. Could Cooper have been an insider?
So, with no body and just a handful of baffling clues, we're left with the myth. And at the heart of that myth are two big competing ideas about what really happened to the man himself. So what do you think? Did he make it? The FBI's official line for years was, no way. I mean, the guy jumped into a freezing storm in a business suit and loafers, possibly with a parachute that didn't even work. But then you look at the other side. His plan was so detailed. And get this, in the year after his jump, 5 other guys tried to copy him, and all 5 of them survived. So it was hardly a suicide mission. An experienced agent even said he probably slept in his own bed that night.
And then, in 2016, the whole thing just stopped. After 45 years of chasing a ghost, the FBI officially closed the active case. They packed up the 66 volumes of files and put them away. The case is still technically unsolved, but the official hunt for D.B. Cooper is over.
And that just leaves us with the legend. He became more than a criminal. He became an American folk hero. So the next time you're looking up at a dark, cloudy sky, maybe you'll think about him, the man who simply stepped out of a plane and into history, leaving nothing behind but a mystery.